my people, and if you're watching live, checking us out on YouTube, or listening on your favorite podcast provider, you are most definitely my people. Joining me tonight is the Santino Brothers alum. He is the reigning and defending FSW No Limit champ, the Chemist, Matt Vandagriff. Matt, how are you?
Doing good. How are you? Of
Excellent, man. Thanks for coming on and chatting about some wrestling tonight.
course.
So we're fresh off the heels of FSW Mecca 8. So let's talk about how things are going out west with you, man.
They're going good so far. I mean, nothing to complain about as at the moment.
Nice. What's the indie scene kind of looking like for you guys out there right now? I know you spend a lot of time traveling between LA and Las Vegas. So what's it kind of feel like out there right now in that territory?
It's feeling pretty good. Still a lot of like high lucha wrestling going on out here on the West Coast, whether it be Vegas and LA. Lots of promotions popping up here and big promotions like PCW, FSW, Santino's, and places all like that.
Let's talk about FSW for a second. You're currently the reigning No Limits champ. What's it like working for the promotion out there and getting a chance to hold a title for them?
It's amazing. They're a great promotion. It's where I currently train at too right now. So it's nice to know that they can have faith in me and put a lot of trust in me and being able to carry the FSW No Limits Championship and put on amazing matches for people to hopefully remember as time goes on.
Now, I mentioned it before. You were recently on the Mecca 8 card. What was that event like for you guys?
It was a really big event. It's one of the biggest events FSW puts on. I believe they do it twice a year. They'll do one basically the beginning of the year or and then at the end of the year, just kind of depending of like if Impact or something like that's in town, they try to do it that same weekend. Get that big draw. People are in town, bigger names are in town. It's easier for them to get in and out. But they always put on great, spectacular shows when it comes to doing their casino shows.
What's the crowd like for you guys? I know here in the American South, back in Tennessee and Georgia, we've got a very vocal crowd. They like to yell and talk a lot. What's the crowd like for you guys out west?
It depends. I guess it depends, but like our crowds vary differently depending on whether it's just like a straight up lucha show or if it's like an American lucha show or just it depends. Like in Vegas, they'll be like if they know who you are, they'll chant for you, they'll cheer for you, they'll yell at you, they'll boo you. If they're still getting to know you, they'll get behind you, or they're still trying to figure you out, so they don't know what to do. Or if it's like in LA, if they'll just tell you how it is, they hate you or they love you. And then like when you're doing lucha shows and it's in more of a front of a lucha crowd, it's kind of harder to kind of figure out. I mean, all crowds love out here love more of the fast-paced, high-flying lucha libre style, but they also really enjoy a stronger style with like bigger dudes. I guess depending on just who's in the match and the style that they're bringing. But the styles and the crowds are a big variety. It's just really depending on what area you're working at. Like Vegas is a central area, and then like California, you got like LA, like 8 different parts of LA. So it's just really kind of depending on what area you're in and the crowd.
So, being the aerial chemist and being in such a territory known for high flying, fast paced offense, how do you separate yourself in a territory like that? Like, what are you doing to separate yourself from the rest of the crowd?
I try to dress a bit different if possible, and then just pretty much just developing and adapting to my style and changing it. Not all the time, but enough to where you can always expect something new wherever I go.
Do you feel like at FSW right now you're really having a chance to expand some on your character and do a little bit more character work versus
I
just
am.
basic on just focusing on in ring? Are you having a chance to build character wise?
I am. That's the main thing I'm actually working on right now is like I have all the wrestling down. Like everyone's told me like, dude, you can wrestle with your eyes closed and you'd have a great match. And now I'm just more focused on working more towards figuring out this character fully. That way I can express it more in the ring and not just out of the ring and
They
not just for pictures.
No, for sure. I hear this analogy a lot when I talk to guys and trainers, and they say they turn certain parts of their everyday life up to 11 for when they're getting into gimmick. What do you turn up from your everyday life when you're getting ready for a show?
Uh, I mean, I'm very focused. Like whether it's in the ring, at the gym, training, I'm like very focused and determined. Like I'm someone that wants this. So like when I go out there, I'm gonna make sure like I'm performing at the highest level I can with whoever it is, whether it's someone that's brand new or someone that's been doing it for 10 years. Like I'm gonna make sure we put on like the best match on the card. Um, and then like that turning up spot, turning it up to like 11 is like I'm a very like shy individual when it comes to being outside of wrestling or just even outside of just a show. Like even at training, I'm still pretty shy unless I'm like training with my like certain people. Like in the ring, like during a show, like that's like the one part of me that like switches, and it's weird.
Have you always been a wrestling fan?
Yeah, I've been a wrestling fan since I was probably like 7, 8. I don't know, whenever, however old I was in 2006.
What kind of wrestling were you exposed to when you were growing up?
The first thing I was exposed to was WWE. That was the main thing I watched for a long time until I want to say 2010. I started watching Impact because or TNA at the time, I believe it was still called. And I started watching. I was like, "Oh, Hogan's gonna be there. Bischoff's gonna be there. I gotta see this." And it's like Jeff Hardy showed up. I was like, "Okay, I gotta watch this every week now."
It was kind of like a lot of times in that early NWA TNA Impact zone when they were blending all of that together. It was like the second coming of WCW in a lot of ways. It felt like because Russo went through it, Bischoff was there, Hogan came in, Sting was there. It was like WCW version 2.0.
Yeah.
Let's talk about training. Where did you start training, and how did you end up hooking up with the Santino brothers?
So I started training at Santino Brothers in 2016 of July, end of June, beginning of July. I started 2 weeks late just because I had to move out there, and they were cool with me coming in a couple weeks late. But I found them because I'm originally from Northern California. So when I was in high school, I was just looking up wrestling schools, and that's always the first one on top of the search page. So I looked into them all the time, and they always had good stuff. I know Ryan Kendrick was training there at the time too, but I ended up going moving down there with some friends. Me and my buddy started doing it. He quit after a while, but I stuck to it. I actually ended up being the only one from my class that made it through.
Do you feel like going to a school? The Santino brothers have had some guys pass through that gym. Do you feel like that gave you an advantage when you broke onto the indie scene, having been through such an established wrestling school?
Yeah, I knew they were a good school, but I didn't realize how established they were, to be honest, until like I started training with them and like I started doing shows and everyone's like, "Oh, you're from Santino's, you're definitely going to be good." It's like, "Oh, okay." So I definitely chose the right school to start at. But yeah, and like I trained with Brody King a few sometimes because he was still there, and like Atlas and Bateman and people like that. So I was able to train with them a lot too.
When you have a chance to work on some of those shows with some of these more veteran guys, and you just have a chance, what's it like being a sponge, just kind of absorbing the business from people that have been doing it for so long?
It's awesome. Honestly, I always like my main trainer now, Sin Bodhi. I always after my match or sometimes during the week I'll be like, "Hey, can we watch my match?" Because I don't care how good my match is, I am always gonna think it sucked. Like I love my matches, but I hate them all the time. So I'm always, yeah, it was cool. They liked it, but I'll watch it back once or twice. I'm like, man, that could have been better. This could have been better. I could have done that instead of this. Like I just pick it apart. I'll watch it once for fun, and then like, but as I'm watching it, I just start picking it apart. I'm like, oh, I hate this.
When you watch tape on yourself, do you watch it and you go, okay, these are things I wanted, kind of like an NFL player would when he watches the previous game and he's like, okay, I see where the defense went here. Do you look for things like timing and like timing and placement of moves, or are you looking at it from the big picture of like, okay, next time we need to try A, B, and C differently? Like, what's your approach when you watch film?
Both. I'm like, okay, well, like I did this one thing to Kenny King on Sunday, yeah, Sunday at Mecca, where I put him into the he was supposed to go into the ropes, but he went to the corner, so I adjusted all that, whatever, whatever. And then I did like a quick combo, then I like put him over the top rope to the floor, And like when I did it in training, it was okay, but in the match, I was like, okay, I need to either just scrap that next time or find a better way to do it. And then like certain things, like taking something, maybe I didn't like how I took it. Like I could have not that how I took it, but I could have like sold it a different way, you know, just things like that.
When you're getting ready for when you're getting ready for an FSW house show, what's your mental prep like and your match prep? Are you going to be? Do you like to call it in the ring? Do you like to plan your spots? Like how do you adjust for match to match when you go into work every day?
I do both. Every match I do both. I like the fancier stuff. Obviously, I'll walk through it or I'll talk through it. But like when we're just in the ring and we're just beating the hell out of each other, we're just beating the hell out of each other until we're ready for the next thing.
Do you feel in 2022 there's a lot of people that say things like the collar and elbow is kind of the once upon a time for a wrestling match? Like that's where everybody comes to the center, that's the entry point, that's where the story starts. Do you feel like in 2022 and with the high paced West Coast style offense, maybe wrestling has evolved past that point now? Do you think there's other
No.
ways to start a match besides just a collar and elbow now?
There are many ways to start a match depending on story, what you're trying to tell in that ring, but preferably I like to chain wrestle or just wrestle, move around with me in my matches before I start doing all the high pace stuff just to kind of get a feel. So I love locking up in the beginning, a collar and elbow. That's my personal opinion. Like I don't think that should ever be gotten rid of. Obviously, you don't want to see it every match, but like I personally like doing that.
It's kind of a one of those tradition. It's like an homage. You don't necessarily have to do it every time, but it's one of those nice things to get it in there, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess it really just depends too, on like if you're in a feud, if you're trying to tell a different story, or maybe like you've watched the first three matches and you're to match four, and you're like, oh, they've locked up, they locked up, they locked up, and I go, no, let's maybe don't lock up, maybe just go behind me, or we can just start just right off the bat with the whatever.
Do you feel like a lot of that also goes into if you're working as a face or a heel, depending on what territory you're in as well? Maybe how the story gets told based on if you're the good guy or bad guy, so to speak.
Yeah, it really just depends on where you're at. And also like gotta feel the crowd out too, whether they know you or there's some people that can go out there and they don't know you and they'll cheer you right away, and there's some people that you can walk out there, they don't know you, and they'll just boo you because they want to boo you. So you gotta just kind of feel that stuff too.
Nice. You've had a chance. You've gotten called up. You had to go do some AEW dark matches. You got to work with the Nightmare Factory. What was it like when you got that call and you got the call? You're like, hey, we're going to use you for some dark stuff.
I was excited. I got the email and hey, they're like, hey, we need you here on this date, and I was like, cool, I'll be there. And I got there. Great story. I got there, uh, said hello, shook my hands with everybody, went, got changed, and then they have like a big ass whiteboard that like has all the shows on it, the matches, how many matches, and like time frames from these two shows and the next two shows. Because they film like four or five darks in one day. So you're there all day. So I get changed and I go look at the board and my name's not on there. There's five shows. And in my mind, I'm like, what the fuck? But so they're like, it's okay, man. Like if something comes up, we'll get you. And I just stayed in my gear. And then luckily for me, someone didn't show up. So I got put onto a match with about 5 minutes to prepare for it. But that's, as we always say in wrestling, always have your gear, always be ready. So
Do you, looking at it from that AEW perspective, is that still one of those situations where you're like, damn, I'm glad I had my gear on me? Just because one guy didn't show gave you a chance to put your talent in the ring for AEW, right?
yeah, yeah.
When you were getting ready for that match, only having 5 minutes to prepare and knowing that you had to go out there and perform at that level, what was that like for you? Getting prepared for that match, getting out there working, because it was a tag team match, right?
Yeah.
So, had you ever worked with your tag partner at that point, or was that the first time you had a
Uh,
chance to work with them also?
that was my first time meeting him.
Nice.
So yeah.
So when you went out there and worked, Was it kind of nerve wracking? Did you just kind of go out there and do your thing to help put the other guys over because you're doing your spot, but you still have to put the AEW guys there? What was that side of it like?
That side was like obviously it was nerve-wracking for a bit, but it's like I'm like in my mind like I know I can do this. I know I can perform with these people, with these talent. But yeah, it was just a real quick thing. Like we got the very little that we were able to get in, and obviously the focus is more on their guys, so they want them to look strong, and we had to do our best to make them look strong. So,
Excellent.
good.
All right, Matt. Well, I always close all of my interviews with 5 rapid-fire questions, some having to do with wrestling, some without. I got your 5 queued up. You ready to roll?
Let's go.
Excellent, man. What's your favorite food?
Favorite food?
Yeah,
Uh, I love Italian food.
like a
So I
pasta
mean, I
guy?
guess like a pasta, pizza, but I'm also like a burger guy, or like I don't know. It really is depends on the day, but if anything, more Italian than anything.
Do you change your menu up daily if you've got a match or not? If you know you're working that night, do you change what you eat that day?
I'll either have yeah, I'll depending on how many matches. Like if I have a whole weekend set, it'll maybe depend. But if it's 1 or 2 matches with like a day in between, I usually eat a big breakfast, work out, and then I'll have like a protein bar afterwards, and that's pretty much it. And then just drink some water. I just fill up during the morning and kind of let it settle throughout the day.
Nice. What's your favorite TV show?
Whew.
Asking the
Uh,
tough ones tonight, man.
There's a few um like The Office is a good one.
Always at the
Uh,
top of the list.
I thought Peacemaker was amazing, and then like Moon Knight and like Low Key and like some of these like new Disney like Plus series.
Are you a Marvel
Hated,
guy?
yeah, hated She-Hulk, but
What about you? What about it didn't you like? As somebody, I haven't watched it all the way through yet. I've seen the first couple episodes. What about it didn't you like? Because I've seen the hate online for it. I'm curious about what you didn't like about it, though.
I mean it was different, I guess, in a way. Like it was cool, like the whole She-Hulk thing, but I don't know. Maybe I was going with more expectation. Like yeah, right, expectation. Yeah, I think of like Hulk being in it more, and like the cameo being more than just an episode of the other guy. And then it was like I don't know. It was still good. I thought it could have been way better, but I mean, I think I was just still coming off the high of like Moon Knight and like Loki and all that stuff.
What's your favorite venue you've had a chance to wrestle in?
Uh, on the West Coast, I would say either the PCW one, just because of the crowd, and then also the GCW one over here, the Ukraine Cultural Center, just how the place is set up. But like a good one was when I got to do New York, and I got the wrestle for GCW Emo Night at the Melrose Ballroom. So I thought that was just a cool experience because that's a place I've always wanted to wrestle.
When you had a chance to work for somebody like GCW, people say it's like the 2022 version of what ECW was in the late 90s. What was it like in that locker room for you guys?
It's always a good experience in the locker room when I'm working for them. Everyone's always great, professional. They all have the same mindset of just trying to kill it and make everyone go home happy.
For sure. Who was your favorite superstar growing up?
Jeff Hardy.
Jeff Hardy. I like the Hardy Boys. I was always a Devon and Bubba Ray guy. Team 3D
Yeah.
coming through the Attitude Era into the that early 2000s tag team work. What is your favorite finisher that's not yours?
Styles Clash.
Also a fantastic pick. All right, Matt, this is my favorite part of the episode. I just got to let you talk. So plug your stuff, kind of let everybody what you've got going on in the next couple weeks and where to find you.
You can find me on social medias. Instagram is Vandagriff underscore haha. Twitter, Matt Vanda 209. Facebook, Matt Vandagriff. I have a Halloween show this weekend at FSW. I've got a lot of shows coming up. Hold up. I got a lot of stuff in LA. I'm in like Vallejo, California on the 4th. I'm back at FSW on the 5th. I'm at Epic Pro on the 12th. VWE versus Tito Bad Dude Tito on the 19th. FSW's Casino Show Against All Odds. I know I'm at Santino's in December. And I do have PCW again, I believe, back in January.
Excellent, Matt. Well, I appreciate you stopping by and chatting about some wrestling, brother.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent, man. Now, as we close another episode of Botched, and Chair Shots, I want to take a minute. Thank you for listening. Remind you to go wherever you do anything on the internet. Like, follow, subscribe, unsubscribe, then subscribe again. Leave a comment telling me how great I am or how terrible I sound. Either way, it helps the algorithm. For the aerial chemist Matt Vandagriff, I am the Will Gray. Thanks for stopping by and listening, my people.